We know that our standard American diet is SAD, Standard American Diet.
It's a great acronym right there. I mean, that's like...
Fittingly fits right in there, you know. It's a SAD diet. It's filled with sugar. It's filled with processed foods. It's filled with fried foods. It's filled with fast foods. It's everything that's bad for us.
But it tastes good.
It does taste good.
Hey guys, what's going on? It is ERIK ZEYHER from Move the Needle Nutrition.
Hey, and Dr. Russell TIGGES from Move the Needle Nutrition.
We are excited to have you guys here today. This is our first podcast.
Woo!
Ready to rock. It's so funny. So I launched my first podcast in 2009, and I haven't really made one since 2014. I was like, I'm never doing these ever again. And here we are in 2020. I am super excited to be on board with you, Russ. It's going to be a lot of fun.
What better thing to do during these wonderful times than to make a podcast?
That's it. We got fitness, nutrition, and make podcasts. That's the name of the game.
Awesome.
So we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff today, one of which is kind of like the creed of why we're even here. So we started with Move the Needle. It came out of it's great because we're here at Warlock, which is actually where it was born out of with Move the Needle Nutrition. So our two creeds are, Russ, you want to start off with one of them?
Sure. We really believe that, one way to stay healthy is how you eat. And to eat properly, we think you should eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar, period. And try and avoid the processed foods.
Yeah, I mean, like, nailed it right on the head. The other one that we really love, we're actually going to borrow it from Michael Pollan, is real food, not too much, and mostly plants. So kind of like using those two in combo is what we found. Everything from extreme weight loss to helping people get to the CrossFit Games. The combo of those two is where we're looking at for health, wellness, and nutrition.
Right. Avoiding and getting rid of diabetes. Believe it or not, it's possible.
Yeah, it's a home run. So we're excited to have you guys on board. If you guys are tuning in, thank you guys so much. This will be a lot of fun along with this journey, along with the Q29 crew. They are here filming for us today. Woo! So thank you guys for putting this all together. We appreciate it. Big shout out to you guys. So here's what I do. I want to talk about some really pressing issues to start out with. And I know Russ is very passionate about this. Let's talk about the real pandemic, the real epidemic, what's really going on. Russ, what are your thoughts? What are your insights? You've been around this for years, so let's hear it.
So, as we all know, we're living in some crazy times with this COVID virus thing out there. It's the real deal. It's a flu. It's hurting people. It's killing people. And we're trying to stay as healthy as we can, both personally and with the flu and with our families. And, how can we be as healthy as possible? And we know that there are certain risk factors that make you more susceptible to the COVID virus. We know that if you have hypertension, the risk of dying from COVID is like 9 or 10% higher, or 9 or 10%.
Not even a little bit. It's a lot. It's tremendously high.
We know if you have cardiovascular disease, it's like 7 times higher. We know that if you have diabetes, it's higher. We know if you have respiratory disease, it's higher. We know that if you have no underlying metabolic conditions, if you're otherwise completely healthy, which sadly to say, it's probably only about 18 to 20% of the whole United States is metabolically healthy, you have less than a 1% chance of dying from COVID. So it's really important to be as metabolically healthy as possible.
So let's unwrap some of that. So what is what is the definition of metabolically healthy? Like, what does that actually mean?
So metabolically healthy, I mean, it's a metabolic health is how healthy your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, your muscles, all your organs and stuff inside your body are. And so metabolic sickness by definition is basically when you have diabetes or pre-diabetes, if your heart does not function optimally, in other words, if you have cardiac disease, if you have high blood pressure, if you have some kidney disease, All those things can mean you are not metabolically healthy. Now, the funny thing is, and it's not really so funny, a lot of times we hear people, well, they got sick and died from COVID and they were otherwise healthy. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, and then you kind of dig in a little bit, and these people had high blood pressure. They had 3 stents in their heart. They had pre-diabetes. They were 40 pounds overweight.
They had asthma.
And literally, their family still thinks they were perfectly healthy. It's truly amazing. I just had a patient the other day who's sadly her husband died, and first 3 times I asked her, yeah, he was perfectly healthy, except for the pills and the stents in his heart and the high blood pressure and the 50 pounds overweight. And so she's still telling people he was otherwise healthy. And so we need to, our mission, as going back to where you started, was how can we get people as healthy as possible?
Yeah, and and that's where this all, again, originally derived from is, so how do we start to bridge that gap of it? Because there's, some of it I think is an understanding and awareness piece. Some of it's an educational piece. Like, where can people start? So most of our viewers are probably fairly fit and healthy and want to move stuff in the right direction. How can we help them first and foremost? So if we're looking at somebody at home, where do they start?
So we really think at Move the Needle that, the first place to start is nutrition. We know that our standard American diet is SAD, Standard American Diet.
It's a great acronym right there. I mean, that's like...
Fittingly fits right in there, you know. It's a SAD diet. It's filled with sugar. It's filled with processed foods. It's filled with fried foods. It's filled with fast foods. It's everything that's bad for us.
But it tastes good.
It does taste good. There's other things that taste good too. Real food, real meat, real vegetables, real fruit, all taste great too. It's just a matter of taking the time and effort to switch your body around. And we know that if you can get rid of that SAD diet and start eating real food, you can make your body a lot healthier.
It's so funny because I think so many people don't realize how shitty they feel until they actually lose the weight. And like the other thing that's really funny is that people go, well, I eat pretty good. And you go, well, let's define good for a second. Like, what does that actually mean? So you sit there and so I had a client a while ago and we go through these beginner classes and we talk about nutrition. I go, well, he goes, I eat pretty good. I'm looking at him. He's probably about 30, 40 pounds overweight. I go, hey, well, what's a good day of eating for you? So, well, in the morning I wake up and I have eggs and bacon. I go, okay, that's not terrible. That's pretty good. We're at a good start. Right. I go, what do you do for lunch? He goes, well, for lunch, I normally have some sort of like deli sandwich or I grab something on the go, but it's usually like, it's not terrible. I'm like, okay, so we're in the realm of good. And he goes, for dinner, I have chicken. I'm looking at him. He's got a little pot belly. I'm like, there's no way this fucking guy eats this. There's no, you can't bullshit me. I know what good eating is. I go, so I got a question for you. For breakfast, does that mean that you're eating like a bacon, egg, and cheese and a hard roll from a deli? He's like, yup, you nailed it. And I'm like, all right, one down. I got 2 more to go. I'm like, lunch, is that like a deli sandwich or like a pizza and like the chicken's like fried? He's like, yeah, it's delicious. I'm like, all right, we're 2 for 2. I go, that chicken, is that fried chicken or chicken wings? He goes, chicken wings are my favorite. So like, I think there's this like really like misconstrued piece of what like healthy eating actually is, where people are like defining like fried chicken or they don't realize what's in their food is like not actually healthy for them. Right. So I think part of what we're trying to do is just create some awareness around that piece.
Well, it's great. I mean, that's a great example. And even to take that example one step further, one thing we like to do in the beginning is when someone says, well, I don't know how I eat, or they think they eat healthy. First thing you have them do is write down exactly what they eat. So you had your buddy just walk through it.
God, I've done that before. It's terrible.
Right, it's terrible.
Even when you know before you eat good, when you write it down, it's awful.
Right. But, just going through him and even listening to you there, back in the olden day, I'd listen to that and say, well, that's not that bad. But if you kind of take a step back and go to what I said about processed foods and packaged foods and everything. All right, he had bacon and eggs for breakfast. Well, now it turned into a bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll. So what's wrong with that? Well, what's processed? Everything was real except for the processed bread, yes, bread is very processed. Bacon, okay, it's a real meat, but that's also processed depending on what quality of the bacon is. You go into lunch and he's getting a deli sandwich. Again, we got processed bread. We probably have at least two different sauces on that thing, which are just loaded with sugar. They taste good. And then you got the deli meats, which, if it's a nice chicken breast grilled, it's great. But if it's bologna times 3, you could probably get better. And then we won't even dig into the chicken wings with the ranch dressing and the barbecue sauce. You
can share some of your insight and feelings on barbecue sauces.
Oh, my goodness. There's so many. So one example of that, barbecue sauce, if you, so I've tracked my glucose before, and I can eat a couple handfuls of blueberries, and my sugars stay perfectly normal. I can have 2 chicken wings with barbecue sauce, and it goes through the roof. Barbecue sauce has literally teaspoons and teaspoons and teaspoons of sugar just rolled right into it. So that's how, everyone sneaks all those bad things we talk about in the SAD diet into everybody's diet. It's overwhelming.
And they don't even notice that they're eating it.
You don't even notice because it's habit. It's part of your life.
So let's pick up right where we left off. We're talking about the processed American diet, that SAD diet. What do you eat on a normal basis, Russ? Like, what does that look like? What did it look like originally? Where is it now? Let's talk about both those things.
That's right. Well, I'll say a few things. Number one, I'm a self-professed, a little bit of a biohacker. And so my diet's changed a little bit over the last 3 to 4 years, basically because I've tried a lot of different diets. Just to, number one, see how it works for my body, but also so I can relate to other people trying different things. Currently, I'm a fairly low-carb type person. I feel that I'm very, very much comfortable eating pretty low-carb.
Okay.
I don't eat any grains. I don't eat any bread.
At the young age of 29, how old are you now?
29 plus 26.
Okay.
I'm 55. I've gone through a lot of different trials with that. I've done keto for a few months. I've gone through Move the Needle. Originally, I jumped in as a client.
Russ was originally my client.
And we did a lot of different things. We actually were fairly high carb.
Yep.
And
some stuff.
Did pretty well, lost some weight. But I just didn't quite feel right. I do have a little bit of underlying arthritis. Inflammatory, and so I was looking to kind of cut the inflammation, and I've navigated over. So today, I intermittent fast. I don't eat anything until lunch. I do have a coffee with a little bit of cream in the morning. At lunch, I love breakfast foods, so half the time I'll have a big breakfast for lunch. Usually,
solid choice.
Usually bring it with me for at work, whether it's 3, 4, 5 eggs with some bacon or some chicken with some vegetables mixed in, something like that.
You eat the yolk? Is that allowed?
Love the yolk.
I love that question. People are always like, can I eat the yolk? Am I allowed to? Like, yeah, please eat the fucking yolk.
So we can dig down into the yolk. The yolk is by far the most nutritious part of the egg, by far. And, it's so funny. The federal government, just 5 years ago was jumping up and down. You shouldn't eat any eggs, right? It was the cause of all cardiac disease, cholesterol. And, the yolks have a lot of cholesterol, but the cholesterol in your blood is not the cholesterol you eat. Less than 10% of the cholesterol in your blood comes directly from the cholesterol you eat. The cholesterol you eat gets digested, gets turned into different micronutrients and macronutrients, including fatty acids, free fatty acids, glucose, glycogen. It gets broken down, and then if you need cholesterol, it can manufacture it. So it turns out now the federal government, literally within the last year, has said, go ahead, Eat all the eggs you want. They're perfectly fine.
Did you ever see the episode of South Park where they literally had the whole food pyramid and they turned it upside down for keto? They're like, oh my God, it's wrong the whole time. Literally, and this was shot back in like 2009, 2010, I think.
Right. They didn't know how right they were way back then.
Maybe they did know. Who knew?
They might have.
Maybe. So that's your typical diet. And like, I mean, how much weight have you lost since kind of changing that? And how different do you feel after making some of those changes?
I've been doing move the needle type stuff for, I think, probably close to 3 years. And I've lost pretty close to 30 pounds over 3 years. Body fat percentage has gone from 24% down to 11%. That fluctuates a little depending on the holidays.
As it should.
As it should. And I can tell you that I move better, feel better, my arthritis is better, just everything's better just by changing the diet around and eating, which allows you to move better, which allows you to exercise better. It's changed, being interested in health and athletics to making it like my life's ambition at this point to help get the word out, because it literally can change your life.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the reason why we're here, is to help people. Like this podcast is like, it's free. We're giving it away. Like, we want to give you guys knowledge to get you better results and get you where you want to be so you can live healthier, happier lives. We know that the healthcare system is fucked. Like, we know that it's...
Hey, I'm a doctor. Come on.
You know what I meant. Not in that form. But I mean, like, the overall process of what people think that they're eating, like, it's abysmal. They have no idea. Like, I was in the grocery store at the part one of this pandemic. The guy's like, got to get some vegetables. He drives in his cart and he picks up a banana and puts it in his cart. Like, people just have no idea what they should or shouldn't be eating. And it's so difficult, but it's awesome to see that, like, you've made massive strides in that and you feel better and you've now passed that information on to other people and you knew what to eat. So I think that, like, part of this also comes with, like, an accountability piece. Right. I don't think a lot of people realize, like, you can do it on your own. Absolutely. And this is not a plug for us. It's a plug for speaking with a professional that knows what they're doing in this so that you can get results faster. So I can't tell you how many times people spin their wheels. They go, well, now I'm stuck.
Right.
And they spin their wheels for 6 months.
Well, the scary part about that a little bit is, and in a lot of ways, you're right, the medical profession does not have a good handle on teaching nutrition and how to guide people into the right direction. The sad part is, again, like I had mentioned, up to a couple years ago, the teachings for registered dietitians, nutritionists, doctors was all about, avoid eggs, avoid fat, eat all, processed foods are okay for you because they don't have any fat in them. It's like the worst thing you can do. And so it is a little bit tough to find good educational material and good coaching to where they can lead you to what actually works. So I kind of told you a little bit about how the old man here has made things a little bit better in what I eat. ERIK, being the young stud athlete.
Yeah, right. I wish.
Well, at least in the room.
I'm almost a master's athlete. Almost a master's athlete. Almost there.
Yeah, I'm almost a lot of things too.
Yeah.
So what do you eat? And tell me about your kind of nutrition history over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so, it's so funny. So for a long time, I played D1 soccer, obviously. Knowing that nutrition at that point didn't matter to me. I could eat whatever I want, perform how I want. I wish I knew then what I know now. The whole kickoff for this originally started when I was at a competition with an athlete. And I went to go into the athlete village, and they stopped me. They said, no, you can't come in. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm a coach. They're like, this is for the athletes only. You don't look like an athlete. I'm like, motherfucker. I'm like,
that's a slap.
I'm a fucking athlete. I'm going to show you. And like, all of a sudden you realize and you look in the mirror, you're like, shit, like I'm not as fit and I don't look as fit and I'm not as fit as I should be. So I started to do some like deep diving, and then I was at a gymnastics course. And again, like I was a little bit heavier than I thought I should be. And I'm like, you know what? If I drop like 15 pounds, life will get easier. So I went out and I got a coach. And from there, I started tracking macros. And I obviously dabbled with stuff before then with zone and intermittent fasting and paleo and messing with some of that stuff. But like, I didn't like hone into the 10th degree. And once I honed in on that piece, like I actually dropped almost 30 pounds. I went from 188 down to 162.
Wow.
So like 25 pounds. And I went from like,
So how did you feel when you dropped the?
fuck me. I mean, like the difference, it was absurd. Like I actually like, it felt like I was running with a weight vest on before, and like mile time dropped, strength went up, aerobic capacity went up, everything improved.
Right.
Energy levels,
and
sleep.
It wasn't because you stopped eating.
No, so I was actually still eating 2,600 calories a day, and that's where I was cutting from. So it was like 200 grams of protein, 290 grams of carbs, and 65 to 75 grams of fat was what I was cutting at. So if you're looking at those numbers, that's like 2,650 calories.
So just to clarify here, so we got a aging D1 athlete.
Yes.
Who thinks
well over the hill.
Who thinks he's in shape.
Yep.
Who thought he was eating pretty well.
Who was also running a gym.
Who was also running a gym. Who decided he needed to lose some weight. He continued to eat 2,600 calories, which is quite a bit of food. It's not incredible amounts. It's not like the mountain from Game of Thrones, but it's a lot of food. And just by switching what you ate, switching into the right types of foods, you were able to lose 25 pounds and gain speed and gain muscle.
Absolutely. We got all the numbers to
amazing.
track it. We should actually, I'll see if the guys, if Mike and the guys can actually pull up a picture of that. If you guys can see the before, it's crazy, the before and after.
Yep.
Maybe we'll put in the comments down below, but you feel so much better. You don't realize how shitty you feel until you actually drop the weight. And I think the hardest part for me was actually like the mental aspect of it. Because I'm like, I need to weigh 175. And I'm like, one of my buddies was like, why the fuck do you need to weigh 175? I'm like, I don't know, that's the number that like I need to weigh to be strong. He was like, how about you just shut the fuck up and you just follow what your coach tells you and you just see where it goes. I'm like, oh, that's probably a pretty good idea. So like as soon as I got past that barrier, I went from like 172 and like the weight just started coming off. The performance got better and I felt better and I moved faster. So like it's really hard to be compliant, but like that process makes all the difference in it.
Yep.
And I don't think people realize what that journey actually is like.
Right. Well, it's tough. I mean, there's no question that there was times during that you were like, wow, I'm not feeling great. I'm feeling weak. Wish I had more food. I wish I could go out and eat those 2 pizzas that I
Eat those
used
chicken wings with that guy at the earlier meeting. Absolutely.
That's right.
Let's
That's
go.
right. But so how long did it take you to lose, let's just say 20 to 25 pounds? Are we talking 2 years? We talking 3 months?
We're talking, so I started in September, dicked around and couldn't really figure it out for the first 2 months. Hit it in November, was fully leaned out by February 1st.
So basically 4 months.
4 months to drop that weight. And like, yeah, I mean, it was a game changer. Just committing to that for 4 months, no booze, 1 cheat day. And I still remember going to see Kevin Hart and I blew out the numbers by like 1,800 calories. I was like, whoops, made a decision.
That's right. I'm back on tomorrow.
That's it. Back on tomorrow. Yeah. So, I think that there's a lot that goes into it. But it's a lot of fun once you kind of figure out how you feel and where that goes.
So you're pretty stable today.
Yep.
Nutritionally.
Other aspects, we're not sure. We'll debate about that.
So what do you eat these days?
So it's pretty consistent. So I'm like a creature of habit. I also try to pick things that are really convenient for me. So usually it's a casein protein shake in the morning, some sort of like banana or fruit. I eat a pepper like an apple, like a weirdo. If you haven't seen me do that yet, I'm sure at some point you will. From there, it's usually like 8 to 12 ounces of ground beef for lunch with like avocado. I'm a big fan of tacos. So like
he
salsa.
is the taco man.
Literally, if you listen, we're gonna write a thing. It's gonna be the taco diet, and it'll literally be just taco, breakfast tacos, lunch tacos, beef, chicken, no fish because I'm allergic to it. But we'll go through that piece. So normally it's like 8 to 12 ounces of protein for lunch and dinner. I'm kind of like skipping breakfast right now, and if I get to pack it from the night before, great. But if not, it's usually 24 ounces of ground beef during the day. Usually half to a whole avocado, 5 to 10 tortillas. They are flour, and then a bunch of like fruit and vegetables with it.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's usually keeping me pretty lean.
Cool. So as you can tell, between the two of us, we eat markedly different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's okay. I mean, everybody's different. You can go through this and we can get 10 different people in the room who are doing great with their nutrition, with their health, and they're going to be eating 10 different ways, which is kind of cool. But we also know that in general, a lot of these principles work for everyone, right?
I mean, especially if you're eating at a caloric deficit, which we can, again, talk about at a later point. But, as long as you're finding a plan that works for you and you're seeing progress, like, don't stop the train. Like, keep the train rolling. I think that's a great place to be. Now, what do you normally find in terms of where people struggle? Do they have too much protein? Is there such a thing as too much protein? Too many carbs? Too much fat? Like, where do you normally see this issue?
Yeah, great question. A lot of these different diets, you had mentioned lots of different macros. You mentioned South Beat. I've mentioned low carb or keto. There's one consistent thing that I think, and the way I look at it with all those things, is protein. We literally need protein to survive and to maintain our strength. And a lot of these diets talk about the amount of protein you eat, and a lot of people worry, can I eat too much protein? And honestly, the simple answer is no. Yeah, of course, there's exceptions.
I love that answer, number one. That makes me so happy.
Absolutely, me too. The simple answer is no. Obviously, if you have significant kidney disease, too much protein can clog up the kidneys a little bit. But if you are anywhere as close to healthy as far as your kidneys are concerned, they can handle extreme amounts of protein, especially on an intermittent basis, if not on a daily basis.
Can you give like a range for what's an extreme amount of protein? Is it like 300 grams, 400 grams?
Sure. Well, so first of all, protein. What's protein? Meat, chicken, beef, pork, fish is a protein.
People forget about that all the time.
Whey protein.
Eggs.
Eggs have protein. Egg whites have protein. Egg yolks also have protein. You can actually get some plant protein. There's a little bit of protein in quinoa, in beans. And so basically 4 ounces or a fistful of meat, let's just take chicken, has roughly 25 grams of protein, okay? So the RDA, recommended daily allowance of protein for the guy laying in bed who's almost going to die is 0.8 grams per kilogram. Now, for a guy my size, my ideal body weight, I throw out to be about 190. That would be roughly, I have it wrote down here because I can't remember anything, roughly about 65 grams, 70 grams in a day.
Which is, I mean, that's nothing.
Wow, I can eat that in a meal pretty easy. Now, the RDA literally is based on to maintain your body functions while laying in bed for the whole day. It does not take into account what you're going to be doing as far as activity, walking around, exercising, having a functional brain that might actually get some ideas. So the minimum is going to be 65, 70 grams, whereas, a heavy, hard-driving bodybuilder, weightlifter can go up to 2 grams per pound. So that would be, for me, if I was lifting heavy weight almost every day, I'd be eating 400 grams.
Okay. So the mountain would be eating what? Like,
I think I watched a documentary. I think he eats something like 800 to 1,000 grams of protein a day, which is pretty crazy. I mean, that's a full-time job right there.
I don't know if I'd want to eat that much protein. I think I get the meat sweats at some point.
At some point, you would.
That's a real thing.
That's a lot of beef. But yeah, protein, it's the building block. And a lot of times you can't maintain your muscle mass if you do not eat enough protein. And so you need to be able to eat protein to maintain your muscle mass. And if you're trying to gain weight, build muscle, and be healthier, you actually have to eat extra protein. It's actually one of the key nutritional things that gets glossed over a lot for older people is, one of the definitions of getting old is sarcopenia, losing muscle mass. And to minimize losing muscle mass, you want to try and up your protein intake as you get older. And if for years people kept saying as you get older, you should cut back, you don't need to eat that much anymore.
You don't need muscle mass. What do you need that for?
Right.
But meanwhile, the first people that we see that are in nursing homes are the ones that don't have the muscle mass to support moving around.
Right.
And they're the ones that are literally running into these issues where, again, they're not getting the amount of protein to keep the muscle on to get what they need to do to move for basic human function.
Not enough muscle to get up out of the chair.
Yeah. I mean, like, I know we see it all the time with low protein, high carb, high fat.
Right.
And that's like the standard, the standard American diet.
American
That's
diet.
literally what it is.
Right.
And just trying to bring some awareness to that where we at least find that things that get measured get improved. So I know that if people can start tracking, even if it's on a pad, just trying to figure out MyFitnessPal, whatever works for people, just starting to track and bring some awareness to what you're actually doing, things will start to improve no matter where you're starting from. So if you're looking for somewhere to start tracking what you're doing, whether it's, imagine if we lifted weights. When you said, Russ, what's your max for your squat? You go, well, I don't know. I didn't really track anything. Well, Russ, we're going to build off that for the next 12 weeks. And you go, well, I don't know those numbers. I'm going to just keep loading weight on and see what happens. Like, you want to look at the frequency. You want to look at the loading. You look at the time retention, all these different pieces. And for some reason with nutrition, people are like, I don't know.
Right.
I got no idea.
And it's tough. It takes time and it takes effort. You mentioned MyFitnessPal. There's a few different apps out there. One of them that we use with Move the Needle is MyFitnessPal. It helps you track the food you take. It gives you the different breakdown of the protein, fat, and carbs. And really, with any of these diets, if you really want to get serious, that's how you start. You start by figuring out what you're actually doing. You can't make an improvement if you don't know what you're doing. As stupid as that sounds, it's the basic truth.
So record it, write it down, start somewhere with that progress. Right. Now let's loop this all back around because we're talking about losing weight and getting fitter and eating better. Where are the people during this pandemic that have these comorbidities, that have these health issues? Like, what does that look like in terms of healthy people versus sick people? Right. Do I have something to worry about being a healthy, aging D1 athlete in terms of like metabolic health and what's going on with COVID?
Right.
What have you found?
Well, I did some scratching around and I found some numbers through the CDC and they know through the numbers they've collected that if you are metabolically healthy, if you're that D1 athlete who's making an effort, even though he's getting older every day.
Trying like hell.
And he's pretty metabolically healthy like the other 18 to 20% of Americans. You have they call it the case fatality rate. So the risk of dying if you caught COVID was less than 0.2%.
0.2%. So not even 2%, 0.2%.
0.2%.
Okay.
If you were metabolically healthy, that's your risk of dying. You'd want to say zero. Guess what? Welcome to life. There is nothing that's zero. Well, there's a couple of things guaranteed, the joke goes, death and taxes, right? But if you have some metabolic disease, one of the other things, I talked about coronary artery disease, hypertension, high blood pressure, those things have significance. So we go from 0.2% to 7 and 10%.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a huge difference.
Right? So that's 10, 20, that's almost 30, 40 times higher risk. If you just have, even if they're well controlled, you have 40 times higher risk of dying from COVID. So you're like, holy crap, what can I do? Well, the answer is let's try and reverse some of those diseases. Notice I didn't say get rid of them. Let's try and reverse. Let's try and get the sad diet out of the system. Let's try and control our weight, allow us to feel better so we can move better. I bet if we lose some weight and move better, we can get your blood pressure down. I bet we can get you off some of your medication. If you're a type 2 diabetic, if we can lose the weight, you're going to need less medicine. If we can get your diet better, you're going to need less medicine. The proper diet can actually reverse and cure type 2 diabetes. It's been known for years, maybe even decades. And I'm sad to say, as part of the medical community is still not pushing that idea. All they want to do is push medicine. Whereas if somebody comes in who's borderline diabetic, if you change their diet, if you get them on the right diet, no processed foods, meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, no sugar, you can get rid of their diabetes. It's literally that simple.
Yeah.
We know it's not simple. We know it's not easy, but it is simple.
It's simple, but it's not easy.
It's not easy.
And there's a big difference between those two.
Yep.
I mean, it's crazy to see that result and that difference in people. And some people don't even know that that's an option.
Right.
Right. And they're just
Yeah.
like, well, I've been taking these pills for 10 years. I didn't know I could come off them.
Right. Well, they can't unless they make changes elsewhere.
And that's part of the deal with this. Russ you mentioned some really great stuff. So you said the death rate with comorbidities, is that just for like singular comorbidities, or is that like for people that have like, most people when we see those, we don't just see one, we see like 3, 4, 5 of those like mixed together with some people. So like,
Right. And that's a great point. I mean, especially in my medical practice, it's very rare to see somebody with isolated high blood pressure. I'm sure some primary care doctors have that, but when people get to me for surgery, you know, they've got arthritis, they've got hypertension, they got cardiac disease, they're pre-diabetic, they got everything. And the question becomes, you're right, if one of them's 10% mortality and the other one's 7% mortality and the other one's 4%, what if they have all three? Does that up to 21%? Or even worse, do you multiply them? Shucks, that's over 100%. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's multiplying. But it does add for sure. I mean, if you've got 3 or 4 of them, it's not 10%, and that's where you get up to the 20%. You know, a couple more stupid little points. Back in the spring when we had COVID, it was if you got stuck in a hospital with COVID, you had a 25% chance of dying. All comers in a hospital. And for better or worse, they're estimating roughly 80% of people who got admitted to the hospital had obesity of one form or another.
that's pretty significant.
Which is crazy. Really, and it's being hidden in the press a lot more than I like. If you dig down into the medical journals, you're seeing it all the time, where this COVID has really been a disease of the overweight. Literally in Italy, I believe it was, Italy or England, 80% of the people who got admitted to the hospital had a diagnosis of obesity, which is a BMI, which we can talk about later, body mass index of greater than 30.
With a life expectancy of what, 81 to 82? Like,
Yeah, I mean, they were still, but a body mass index of being obese got them COVID bad, so they got into the hospital, which turned their risk of dying, which was already elevated because they were obese, into 25% once they got admitted to the hospital. The good news is we've figured out COVID a little bit. The risk of dying once you get admitted to the hospital actually in the United States is down to 7%. So
it's a pretty significant
that's
improvement.
pretty significant, 75% better treatment nowadays. Still don't want to get COVID if you have any comorbidities, but you know, there is some hope on the horizon. So the best thing you can do is not sit there and hide in your house and try and isolate from everything in the world. The best thing you can do is take control of yourself, take control of your diet, and if you need some help, give us a call at Move the Needle, and we can try and help you feel healthier.
No call. We just online. It's fine.
Oh, okay, sorry.
We'll work on that. You know, and it's so funny because like we talked about one piece of this today. We just talked about the nutrition side. Yep. You still got the whole fitness side of things too, which is a whole different component. But if you can hone in, I mean, like I truly believe that like the fitness is the catalyst for nutrition. However, the nutrition is 80% of the battle,
absolutely.
maybe more.
That's one of the old, sayings that nobody believes, but it's so true. For health, it's 80. For weight loss, for health, for anything, it's 80% nutrition, 20% activity. And anybody who's done this for a while will completely agree that you can go to the gym every frickin' day as much as you want, and if you don't eat right, you ain't getting healthy and you ain't losing weight. It's sad but true.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got to make the move nutrition-wise. So that's why we're talking about this today. Number one on the docket, the most important piece.
Absolutely.
So let's roll into a few different, we got a few different topics. So we're going to kind of hit on this every single time we chat. We got shout-outs, recommendations, maybe it's books or TV shows that you're watching. And then we'll also maybe even like throw in a quote or two. Russ, anything that like jumps out at you for any of those three?
Well, my big hot topic currently is continuous glucose monitoring. like I said before, I like to biohack a little bit. For better or worse, I've tried most anything you can find on the internet, and I'm still talking and walking. But I really think, going down this nutrition pathway and trying to optimize nutrition, optimize health, and I'm also into kind of longevity since I'm getting older and older every day too.
Young age of 29, still at it.
The one of the cool things about a continuous glucose monitor, and it was only for diabetics, but with more and more research being done, we're finding it's so interesting and so much data about what to eat, when to eat, how to eat. And it's really, first you got to get rid of the processed foods, but after that, you can really start going down a rabbit hole and really fine-tuning stuff with this. So we're playing with that, and we think we're going to be rolling that into Move the Needle soon.
Athletes, weight loss, all the above. Like, what are you thinking for that?
So, yes.
Okay, cool.
Great question. And, we didn't really talk much about, guys like you, the high-end athletes for the...
I appreciate that.
Yes,
that
you're
comment
welcome.
of high-end. I don't know about that.
And all this stuff rings true for them also. If you can make your squat 5 pounds better by eating better, I'm pretty sure most high-end athletes would do that in a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
And so all these little things we're talking about applies to all those people. And the continuous glucose monitor, I think, really can affect, high-end athletes, recreational athletes who just want to feel better. It really can set you up for your lifetime.
Not only that, the knowledge that comes with understanding what's going on in your body and how it optimizes some of those foods, and obviously it changes over time. But like that knowledge is going to be a game changer for people when they figure that shit out.
It's crazy what's going on behind the scenes with that right now. It's super exciting.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
We're going to give a shout out to two people from Move the Needle. One is Marie Hughes. She's crushing it on the client side of things. So Marie, congratulations.
Yay, Marie.
She's lost a bunch of weight with us. And then we're also going to give a shout out to one of our coaches, Christy. People love her. She actually was here in Poughkeepsie. She moved across the country out to Arizona. So if you are in that Sedona area, feel free to visit her out there. She just has a great way to connect with people. Her clients love her. She dives in deep. She is truly, truly passionate about what she's doing with helping people. She's a real gem to have on our team.
Yeah, she does great. I actually seen her a while back and down in Sedona, and she's got a good setup. She's doing really good down there.
I mean, not only to mention, she's also like top 30 fittest women in the world.
Oh, details.
But who cares that she can clean and jerk 220 at the age of 45 to 49?
Right.
I mean, like a super impressive person, super impressive athlete, but the important part being super impressive person in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're lucky to have Christy on the team. Yeah. Little quote that I always love to live by, and I know that you've used this a few times. I always ask myself, especially in like food situations, is this going to help me move closer to my goal? So if you guys were to take one thing with you in terms of like quoting, look at what you are eating or what you're doing and ask yourself, is this moving you closer to where you want to be? If not, make a change. But I think that's a really important piece for you guys to see even better results than what you normally do.
It's a great quote, and I'll have to be honest, I've used it on myself several times where you get in a situation and you're like, should I do it or not? Or should I have that, I need it, I don't. And if you just take one step back and go, is this going to move me closer to my goal?
Is it going to help you move the needle in the right direction? The answer,
it's makes things easy.
It's that simple.
One thing I want to bring up is ERIK and I over the years have shared a lot of books. And it's really fun. And so, ERIK, what are you reading now?
Oh, man. Right now, so I usually like jump between like 4 or 5 different books, depending on what the mood is.
God bless you.
Some people can just do it. I really love Austin Kleon's book. It's called Show Your Work. It's allowed me to help kind of create this piece of the puzzle for me. He's got like a book of 3 series with that. It allows me to kind of be creative and it makes it okay and kind of shows me a path of how to share some of these things. And I think the podcast is a great explanation of part of that book and me kind of putting it into action. So check out Show Your Work by Austin Kleon. Awesome book, and shout out to Austin for sharing it though. So thank you.
That's awesome.
What about you, Russ? What are you sharing? What are you reading?
Currently, I'm reading a great book. It's actually originally published in 2008, just got re-editioned in 2016, called Deep Nutrition. Really in-depth, kind of full encompassing book about nutrition, genetics, and it really digs deep. It kind of combines nutrition with life, longevity, and why we're doing what we're doing, and how screwed up the SAD diet is making everything, not only from my waistline, but to our kids, our genetics, our environment, and everything. And you know,
a lot that goes into that.
It's cool reading it because you realize that, you know, this is nothing new today. This has been out there for years and years and years, and we're just finally getting smart enough as a groundswell to really start broadcasting this more. And it's really cool to read some of that stuff from back then.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially to dive deeper into that now. It's great, especially looking back on it.
Yeah,
which is huge. Guys, we want to encourage you guys at home to either give an MTN shout out or share some books with us. We always like recommendations from other people. That's how we find some of these books to begin with. So if you want to tag Russ or myself, we'll make sure that we get those handles down below in some of the comments. Or you can just hashtag MTN shout out your friends, somebody that we should mention. We will shout somebody out on our next podcast. So we appreciate that with you guys tuning in. Let's chat about our next episode, because this is going to be a lot of fun, along with being here with you and the Q92 guys. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep. What are you thinking?
There's so many options. I mean, I really think that, knowing that I'm becoming a master's athlete very soon, how to stay young would really benefit me. So whether we're talking about diving deeper into macros and some different nutrition pieces, whether we're talking about mobility and flexibility, I think that those are two hot topics that I want to definitely discuss.
I love those. I'm a big fan of how to stay young, obviously. So we got a lot of biohacking. We got a lot of ideas for that. So I'd encourage everybody to stay tuned. We got a lot of great, exciting topics.
A lot of great guests too.
We got a couple people, very exciting, cool people lined up for guest appearances to get a different perspective. And we're going to try and teach you guys a lot of basics. We're going to try and teach you guys a lot of great stuff. And we're going to go off on the edge a little bit too to show you how far you can go.
Yeah, we're excited. We want to help you guys move the needle. So thank you guys for tuning in. Episode number 1, Russ, in the books.
Woo!
Congrats.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.